sequel to the resignation of the former head of the interim national government and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Chief Ernest Shonekan, and my subsequent appointment as head of state and Commander-in-Chief, I have had extensive consultations within the Armed Forces hierarchy and other well-meaning Nigerians in a bid to find solutions to the various political, economic, and social problems which have engulfed our beloved country and which have made life most difficult to the ordinary citizens of this nation.
To some persons, General Sani Abacha, Nigeria's 7th military head of state, was a no-nonsense brutal dictator. But to others, he was a good man. In this episode, we narrate the two sides of Abacha, namely his brutal side and his good side. Welcome to this edition of Back in History as we look at the man, Sani Abacha. Abacha took over the reins of power from Ernest Shonekan in a palace coup in November 1993 and went on to rule the country with zero tolerance to opposition till June 1998 when he died in office. He is viewed by many as Nigeria's real dictator since independence. He was a no-nonsense ruler. He was not given to smiles. He wore dark goggles in most of his public outings, and in it, his intentions were perfectly buried. Not many people could read his mind, not even the people close to him. Even the people close to him could hardly read him. He was ruthless and took drastic actions whenever he felt like doing so. The first action Abacha took upon taking over the reins of government was to suspend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria with immediate effect. This was done in his first broadcast to the nation. By this suspension, every democratic principle was suspended. Fundamental rights principles such as the rights to freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, and many other constitutional rights were suspended. Citizens could thus be arrested arbitrarily and detained for weeks, months, and years without trial and without the grant of bail. Still in the first broadcast of General Sani Abacha, all executive offices in all the states of the Federation were suspended with immediate effect. In other words, all serving governors were sacked together with their deputies. The houses of assembly in all the states of the Federation were suspended and disbanded with immediate effect. All local government councils were disbanded. Democracy was completely removed from the country and military rule was fully enthroned.
Many have expressed fears about the apparent return of the military. Many have talked about the concern of the international community. However, under the present circumstances, the survival of our beloved country is far above any other consideration. Consequently, the following decisions come into immediate effect. The interim national government is hereby dissolved. The national and state assemblies are also dissolved. The state executive councils are dissolved. The brigade commanders are to take over from the governors in their states until administrators are appointed. Where there are no brigade commanders, the commissioners of police in the states are to take over. All local governments stand dissolved. The directors of personnel are to take over the administration of the local governments until administrators are appointed. The National Electoral Commission is hereby dissolved. All former secretaries to federal ministries are to hand over to their director generals until ministers are appointed. The two political parties are hereby dissolved. All processions, political meetings, and associations of any type in any part of the country are hereby banned. Any consultative committee, by whatever name called, is hereby proscribed.
In the course of Abacha's regime, MKO Abiola returned from exile and held a press conference in a place called Ekpetedo in Lagos State, Nigeria, where he declared himself as the President and Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces of the country. He declared a government of national unity throughout Nigeria and reconvened the National Assembly, reinstated all dismissed governors, and reconstituted the houses of assemblies of all the states of the Federation. Abacha did not take this lightly. He was extremely angry. He immediately declared Abiola wanted and ordered for his arrest and detention. Abiola was arrested and detained for 4 years, and all entreaties to have him released were rejected completely by Abacha. Diplomats from several countries pleaded to no avail. The then Catholic Pontiff Pope John Paul II came to Nigeria on a religious diplomatic visit and used the opportunity to plead with Abacha to release MKO Abiola. Still, Abacha did not release him from custody. Abiola later died in the said custody. Also, during Abacha's tenure, a renowned environmentalist, Ken Saro-Wiwa, from the Ogoni area of Rivers State, intensified his campaign for the protection of the Niger Delta region and also for the protection of the environment. He also intensified his campaign for the betterment of the lives and living conditions of the people of the Niger Delta region. His agitation did not go down well with the regime of Abacha. While Abacha remained in office, 4 traditional rulers in the area were killed by irate youths in Ogoni land on allegation that the chiefs had collected money from the government and from the oil companies to sabotage the progress of the area. Abacha immediately sent soldiers to arrest Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others, and a tribunal was set up to try them for murder of the 4 traditional rulers. Justice Ibrahim Auta was appointed by Abacha to head the tribunal, while J.B. Daudu, now Senior Advocate of Nigeria, was retained by the federal government of Nigeria as the government's prosecutor. In no time, the Ogoni 9 were found guilty and sentenced to death. Abacha did not waste time in signing the death warrant for their execution. All entreaties from the international community and from within Nigeria fell completely on deaf ears. The Ogoni 9 were executed. Their execution was a shocking and brutal reality, but Abacha moved on, undaunted. On July 5, 1994, the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, PENGASAN, began the longest strike in Nigeria's history in protest over the annulment of the June 12 election. The nation was plunged into a monumental fuel crisis. On August 18, Abacha responded fiercely to the strike by sacking the Executive Council of NUPENG and PENGASAN together with the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress. This was another brutal side of the man Sani Abacha. On the same August 18, 1994, Abacha expressed displeasure over the way the leading newspapers in the country carried out their reportage of events in the country. Abacha then announced the immediate closure of all media houses owned by Punch, Concord, which was owned by Chief MKO Abiola, and the Guardian newspaper. Soldiers were deployed to enforce the closure. The closure was with immediate effect and lasted for a long time. Abacha was also unsparing when it comes to arrest and detention of perceived opponents. On August 19, 1994, Abacha ordered the arrest of Anthony Enahoro, elder statesman and mover of the first historic motion for Nigeria's independence from Britain. He was arrested at Sheraton Hotel and Towers. Also arrested were Chief Cornelius Adebayo and General Alani Akinrinade, who was Abacha's senior by many years in the military. They were detained for several months without trial. Alhaji Balarabe Musa, former governor of Kaduna State, was also arrested together with other persons who were attending a meeting in his house in Kaduna. They were however later released. On 20th August 1994, Chief Frank Kokori, then Secretary General of Nupeng, was also arrested. In October 1, 1994, Abacha ordered for the arrest and detention of Chief Gani Fahemi, a popular Lagos lawyer. The reason for his arrest was that he launched a political party, the National Conscience Party, in Lagos State, Nigeria. The attempt to take a step capable of bringing back democracy at the time did not go down well with Abacha. In November 1994, Professor Wole Soyinka fled Nigeria for reason of threats to his life. He alleged that his life had come under close monitoring by elements of the Abacha regime. On 28th February 1995, Abacha ordered the arrest and detention of General Olusegun Obasanjo, Brigadier Lawal Gwadabe, General Musa Yar'Adua, and others on allegation of coup plotting. They were tried by a military tribunal and sentenced to death by firing squad. By providence, however, these persons were not executed. But General Musa Yar'Adua did not come out alive. He died in prison custody. The other brutal side of Abacha was the dethronement of Alhaji Ibrahim Dasuki from the stool of Sultan of Sokoto on grounds of insubordination and alleged poor leadership, an allegation which was strange to many. This was done on the 20th day of April 1996. Dasuki was immediately replaced with Alhaji Muhammadu Mashidu. During Abacha's reign, the wife of Emka Abiola, Alhaja Kudirat Abiola, was shot and killed by assassins on the streets of Lagos. This was on the 4th day of June 1996. Her driver was also killed in the attack. Abacha immediately sent condolences to the family and blamed the assassination on terrorism. He placed a bounty of $45,000 for anyone who would find the killers. He sent soldiers to pay condolence visits to the Abiola family. Abacha also ordered the arrest of his erstwhile deputy General Oladipo Dia and many others on allegation of coup plotting. Among those arrested and detained were persons like General Adisa and General Olarewaju. On 28 April 1998, these persons were found guilty and sentenced to death by a special military tribunal headed by then Major General Victor Malu. Abacha was also seen as being brutal to the Commonwealth of Nigeria. After his death, huge sums of money have been repatriated from abroad to Nigeria in what is infamously referred to as the Abacha loot. Abacha was a hard man in power. He was a man of action and was not given to much talking. He was feared by civilians and even feared by his colleagues in military uniform. But he also had the good side, and some people still adore Abacha till today. 27 years after his passing, during his regime, he created 6 additional states for Nigeria. The states were Ebonyi, Bayelsa, Nasarawa, Gombe, Ekiti, and Zamfara states. For citizens of these states, Abacha was a good man who came to their aid at a time they least expected. The creation of a unique identity for them could only be done by a man of goodwill. During his tenure, Abacha refused to take foreign loans. He carried on with the construction of infrastructures in the whole of Nigeria without taking loan. He resisted every invitation for him to take loan. Though the International Monetary Fund and other money lending bodies were not happy with him, many Nigerians were happy. They saw him as a wise, prudent president who was not willing to plunge his country into years of indebtedness. During his tenure, Abacha constructed federal secretariats across the Federation of Nigeria. Before his tenure, most federal agencies and parastatals operated from rented offices. It was Abacha who came up with the idea of building massive structures to accommodate these agencies and parastatals in one location in each and every state of the Federation. These structures are still there in the states of the Federation till today. Also, during his tenure, federal medical centers were built in all the states of the Federation. These are massive hospitals designed to meet the health needs of the people of each and every state of the Federation. Hospitals built for citizens of all levels. Chief medical directors were appointed to head the hospitals, and huge investments were made in the hospitals. These hospitals are still functional till today, and most of them have been renamed after Sani Abacha, while others have been converted to university teaching hospitals. As at 1996, when Abacha was in power, the exchange rate was 85 naira to $1, as against today, which is about 1,600 to $1. Abacha reduced the external debt of Nigeria from $36 billion in 1993 to $27 billion. It was during his tenure that Nigeria liquefied natural gas, otherwise called the NLNG, was established in Bonny Island. The national refineries worked optimally, and petrol was refined in country for consumption. Abacha built the National Hospital Abuja and also built Women and Children Hospital in Sokoto State. He also built the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Kano. Abacha invested massively in the health sector of Nigeria. The Agbo Legislative Quarters in Abuja was also built by him. The idea of the 6 geopolitical zones for Nigeria was given recognition during Abacha's regime. This had since been adopted and maintained by successive administrations till today. Abacha increased fuel price only once in his 4.5 years in office and set up the Petroleum Special Trust Fund, which was widely acknowledged to have performed well in infrastructural development and intervention programs in education, health sector, and water. For General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who occupied the office of Head of State of Nigeria before Abacha, Abacha was a savior. When Major Gideon Oka staged a coup in 1991 against the regime of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, Abacha was the most visible senior officer who engaged the coup plotters in combat and chased them out of Dudan barracks, while some of the coup plotters were captured alive and put to trial. Upon the frustration of the coup, Abacha had every opportunity to have declared himself as the new head of state of Nigeria, Babangida having escaped to safety. But Abacha refused to take over power. He protected the seat of power and invited Babangida to return to his seat. Babangida returned from hiding and continued in office as the head of state of Nigeria. Babangida made a national broadcast, and in it, he showered encomium on Abacha for his forthright disposition. With this gesture, Babangida did not joke with Abacha. He saw Abacha as the man who saved his life and also served his regime. In 1983, it was General Sani Abacha, then a brigadier general, who announced the military takeover of the reins of power from the civilians. It was this coup which brought the regime of Major General Muhammadu Buhari and Major General Tunde Idiabon to being. When Buhari and Idiabon derailed from the charted course, it was again Sani Abacha who announced their removal and the constitution of the Armed Forces Ruling Council, with General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, IBB, as the military president. For most of the military officers whom Abacha appointed as governors, Abacha was a good man. It was Abacha who created Federal Character Commission to address perennial imbalances in the appointment of persons into offices in the country. Abacha played a significant role in securing peace in Sierra Leone and Liberia through the deployment of Nigerian soldiers to the warring countries. Indeed, the man Abacha was like the elephant, and the description of his personality depends largely on the part of the elephant that the person describing it may have touched in person or may have been told about. But the truth remains that even as a military dictator, Abacha had made reasonable contributions to the development of Nigeria. Many thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel for regular notifications. I am your friend and host, Ekemini Udim, wishing you the best in all you do.